One of the things Democrats actually did pretty well during this election cycle was make people view Project 2025 as the actual monster that it truly is. Even Donald Trump disavowed it time and time and time again, even though we knew he was lying to the American people. But if you end up getting anything out of this video, please do remember to hit that subscribe button. I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I would very much appreciate your support. Now, if you've been living under a rock for the past year and are unfamiliar with Project 2025, it is basically an authoritarian playbook for a second Trump administration. They aim to consolidate as much power as possible into the executive branch, which would basically mean that Donald Trump is a de facto dictator. And Donald Trump and his campaign knew these ideas were so unpopular that he continued to lie about it through his entire campaign. In fact, he even lied about it on the presidential debate stage with Kamala Harris.
As you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before.
So for Donald Trump to be saying that he's somehow this open book while directly lying to the American people is quite rich to me. And we know Donald Trump is lying about Project 2025 because many of the people who wrote the actual documents were in the first Trump administration. And now that he has won the 2024 election, Donald Trump is using those very same people to staff up his second administration. As we can see here, we have people like Stephen Miller, who's going to be the deputy chief of staff for policy. We've got Brendan Carr, chairman of the FCC. We've got that MAGA lunatic, Tom Homan. He's going to be the border czar and the face of mass deportations. Then we have John Ratcliffe, CIA director, Pete Hoekstra, ambassador to Canada. And then we have Caroline Leavitt, who's going to be the press secretary, and she was in Project 2025 training videos. So the connections could not be more clear, but because Project 2025 was so unpopular, Donald Trump continued to lie to the American people, whether he was involved in this or not. But now that he has won and is not really hiding the fact anymore that Project 2025 might just very well be a main staple of the second Trump administration. And that became abundantly clear when he nominated Russell Vought to head up the Office of Management and Budget. This is a key position in the federal government.
But perhaps the most telling of Donald Trump's new appointments, and one of the most consequential, is this man, Russell Vought. He's the co-author of, hope you're sitting down for this, Project 2025. He's going to lead the Office of Management and Budget.
So Russell Vought is one of the key architects behind Project 2025, and Donald Trump just appointed him to run the Office of Management and Budget. This is a big deal because the Office of Management and Budget is the office that directs funds and how they are going to be spent after Congress has allocated those monies. So it is a big deal, and this position holds a lot of power about how Donald Trump is going to carry out his second administration. And I'm not sure if you guys remember, but we did a video on Russell Vought quite some time ago where he was caught on undercover video talking about Project 2025 and how it was going to be a key element of a second Trump administration. And he is seen here talking about fringe legal theories and using the military against American citizens.
Vought has also been preparing documents based on fringe legal theories, arguing the president has the power to use the military against protesters.
George Floyd obviously was not about race. It was about destabilizing the Trump administration. Right. We put out, for instance, a 50-page paper designed for lawyers to know that the president has, the ability both along the border and elsewhere to maintain law and order with the military, and that's something that it's going to be important for him to remember and his lawyers to affirm. But we've given them the case for that.
So as you can see, Russell Vought is a crazy person. He is basing his worldview off all of these conspiracies, like the George Floyd riots were a concerted effort to derail the Trump administration. I mean, I don't understand how these guys live in such a conspiracy bubble where the facts are no longer relevant, or they've just created their own alternative facts, as Kellyanne Conway once said. But Russell Vought is not a stupid person. He is the one who has been preparing documents to basically have a fascist takeover of the United States government. As I said before, they are trying to consolidate as much power as possible to give Donald Trump the power to use the military against United States citizens, to use the military to do mass deportations and things along those lines. And we should also be very concerned about Russell Vought because he is a Christian nationalist and he is not afraid to say that. Here he is talking about a radical anti-abortion agenda for a second Trump administration.
With loyalists installed in key government agencies and armed with his playbook, Vought believes a radical Christian nationalist agenda can be realized under a second Trump presidency. For example, on abortion.
So I think the president's actually come up with a strategy that works so long as you are giving people like me in the government the ability to block funding for Planned Parenthood, block funding for fetal tissue research. But what I've told people is he had the most pro-life record ever. I've never seen him take it to stand in the way of a pro-life initiative that actually was real, politically and with momentum.
So this was an undercover video where he's talking openly about these things, but now Donald Trump has won the 2024 election and he has been appointed to the Office of Management and Budget. It is pretty safe to say that Project 2025 is very much on the table. And Russell Vought seems to be very confident that they will be pressing more anti-abortion legislation. And that should be terrifying for each and every one of us. Defunding Planned Parenthood not only stops medically necessary abortions or other abortions, but they are a huge component of women's health care. They do much more than provide abortions to people. So trying to strip funding away from them only makes another hole in our already weak health system. So these are the things that they are going to be trying to do. These are the things that were tied to Project 2025, and now that Donald Trump has won, he's not really hiding this stuff anymore. He is openly appointing these people to positions of power, and when was the last time we heard him talk about Project 2025 or denounce it? In fact, you saw MAGA influencers all over the internet coming out after the election saying, well, I guess we can say that Project 2025 is real and that is what we are going to do, even though the American people are not in on the joke. They're not in on it. American people do not like this. It is profoundly unpopular, and Americans are just not interested in having a fascist takeover of the United States government. And when we're talking about people like Russell Vought, he wants to be mean to be mean. Listen how he talks about terrorizing civil servants who have served their life in federal government.
We want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. We want, when they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work because they are increasingly viewed as the villains. We want their funding to be shut down so that the EPA can't do all of the rules against our energy industry because they have no bandwidth financially to do so. We want to put them in trauma.
So these are terrible, terrible, terrible people. They want to be cruel for cruelty's sake. We talked about that in our mass deportation videos. They want to rain terror down on anybody they perceive as unloyal to Donald Trump. They want to strip away funding from places like the EPA, which make sure we have clean drinking water, make sure we have clean air and things like that. But Russell Vought is pretty confident that we're going to be stripping funding away from those areas because we want to go do our gas and oil exploration, and we don't want to be encumbered by these regulations that are going to keep Americans safe. It is a damn shame that Donald Trump lied about this. I think People voted for Donald Trump because they were experiencing some leftover grief from that inflationary period right after COVID. And I do not think that Project 2025 is what they signed up for. I think if Americans had a better understanding of what Project 2025 is and that Donald Trump plans to use it, maybe Americans would have voted the other way. And that's exactly why Donald Trump continued to lie about it time and time and time again. And this last piece of video I want to show you is Russell Vought being very confident that Project 2025 will be handed right over on day one for implementation.
But Vought says that no matter who is named, he'll be able to hand over his Project 2025 battle plans directly.
If it's someone like Stephen Miller or Bob Lighthizer, then all this stuff gets plugged right in. If it's not, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
But all of it will be designed for a theory of the case that if a battle plan is out there that will do what he wants, there are people like me that have his trust that will be able to get it to him in whatever position we're at, or I could be at Center for New America, but the relationships will be there, the trust level will be there.
So he's pretty confident. Project 2025 is going to make its way into the second Trump administration. And now that we have Russell Vought as the director of Office of Management and Budget, not only that, we have Stephen Miller, who's going to be the deputy chief of staff for policy. You can expect that Project 2025 is going to be their main agenda. This is directly from the Heritage Foundation. And in Donald Trump's first term, I think he implemented some 60% of the Heritage Foundation's plans then. But now that Project 2025 aims to consolidate as much power as possible to make Donald Trump the little fascist leader that he wants to be, you can bet your bottom dollar that Donald Trump will be pursuing this with rigor and passion. Donald Trump has authoritarian tendencies that we've talked about time and time and time again, and Project 2025 is a tool that is going to consolidate that power for him so he can be the little authoritarian that he wants to be. So, Donald Trump lied. It's no surprise to many of us that we're warning the American people before Election Day, but Americans need to brace for impact. This stuff is just antithetical to many of our values that we hold here in America, and it is definitely anti-democratic when you lie to the American people about the actual platform that you are going to be implementing in a second Trump administration. I'll leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share it with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. Like I said, I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, and I am like this close, so I would very much appreciate your support. If you guys want to see or get an idea of how Donald Trump might implement mass deportations in a second Trump administration, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.